Nigeria, that would be awesome. Okay, so we are starting recording now. So thank you. Thank you. Okay, so thank you so much. My name is once again is Osho Abiodun. I'm the Managing Director of Code Africa Nigeria. So thank you so much. It's going to be a fantastic training and we wanted to take advantage of it. Thank you so much. Okay, proudly from Nigeria. Thank you so much. Thank you. Sorry, Sheyi, can you? Sheyi, are you set?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Good evening.
Okay, thank you so much. So I will be off the mic of the video as I handle the mic to the facilitator today. Is a senior developer. He's a developer for over 10 years. And I'm proud to tell you that she is one of the team that have been raised by us and is fantastically good. You are going to enjoy him and other team, you will join them seriously. They are very fantastic people. I'm so proud of them. They have trained so many people. So I want you to just cooperate with him. You will have him from now till 8 p.m. So thank you so much. God bless you. So I hand over to you. I'm off the mic and I'm off the video. Thank you. Over to you, Sheyi.
Hi, everyone. I hope you can hear me audibly well. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're joining us from. This is evening Nigeria. It's after 6. Please, I implore for kindly mute the microphone, please. I will give you a question and answer session where we can interact. Please check your microphone and ensure your microphone is muted, please. All right, I hope you can hear me. All right, good evening, everyone. Before I go straight to what I have for us this evening, I would like to say one or two things. And the first thing is to encourage as many of us who are participating in such program for the first time. I would like to say, personally, there is this, I believe in this first time principle, right? And, for me, the first time principle simply means there will always be first time to everything in life, right? So there will always be first time to everything in life. And, I like using this analogy. If you know how to drive and you can drive very well, there was a time that you don't know how to drive and you aspire to know, right? So there was this first time you sat behind the wheel and you had an instructor who is giving you instruction. Oh, this is the gear, this is the steering, this is the brake, and all of that. And when you see people driving, it looks as if one day I hope I'll also be able to drive and stuff like that. But you can look at yourself today and think about where you started from and think about where you are currently. And you can say, oh, there are a lot of improvements. It wasn't like the very first day you sat behind the wheel, right? So that's basically what I term as the first time approach. So there will always be first time you are coming across something and first time it will look as if, oh, this thing is so difficult. Will I be able to navigate my way through this thing? Will I be able to get this? Will I be able to comprehend? So there is that tendency, right? But this evening, I just want to encourage you that you must not be discouraged. At the beginning, it might look so hard, it might look so difficult, but if you give yourself to it, if you commit your time to it, you will discover that over the course of time, that is as simple as ABC, right? So it's as simple as that. So don't be afraid when we're talking about some terms and terminology and it looks as if, oh, I'm just hearing this thing for the first time. I don't even know what it means. Don't be afraid, right? You will get used to those things. You will get to know them and you'll be able to apply them. Having said that, I also want to inform you that it's important that you set aside at least 1 hour every day to go over this, right? Try as much as possible to set at least aside 1 hour every day to practice, to learn new things. It really goes a long way to help you in your journey of becoming a web developer, right? So please take it very seriously. Don't let a day go without learning a new thing as far as web development is concerned. All right, having said that, we can proceed now. So the entire concept of web development is dependent on what we call request and response. That's all about it, right? So when we talk about request, so someone is making requests somewhere, making requests to someone or to something somewhere, and something is able to get the response for that request and is able to hand it over back to the person making the request. That's the entire concept, right? So then you can then begin to talk about, oh, so where is the request coming from? Or where is the response coming from? Also, the request is coming from what we call the client. The client is referred to as your personal computers, right? The client can be referred to as your mobile phones, right? So that's your client, basically. But if there's a client that is making the request, right? Then it also means that you also have something somewhere providing the response, which is the server, right? So that's why the client-server relationship comes in, right? So the client, which is your personal computer or your mobile phone or whatever device you're using, is sending the request. The request is going to a server, fetching the information, the required information from the server, and giving it back to you. But there are other components in between the request and the response. So, for example, on the web, so if you on your system, whether you're using a laptop, you're using a desktop, or whatever you're using, right? You have a web browser installed. How many of us, I want to believe we know what a web browser is, right? So when we talk about web browser, we talk about applications that help us to send information, also receive information from the web, right? So you can, for example, you have the Google Chrome web browser, you have Mozilla Firefox. If you're using Mac, you have Safari, you have Tor browser, you have so those are browsers, right? So the browser send the request. Now, but if you notice, so if you launch a web browser, so there's an address bar where you can input the URL, the uniform resource locator of the website. For example, URL is like www.facebook.com, www.google.com, and all of that. So those are domain names, right? Now, when you input a domain name onto a browser, now that request is sent to a server called the domain name server. So the domain name server serves as an interpreter, right? So for example, so there are two people communicating. I can only speak English language. The other person can only speak French. So for us to be able to communicate effectively, so we need an interpreter, right? So we need an interpreter. So that interpreter must understand both English and French, such that when I speak English, the interpreter will be able to interpret to French. Then when the other person speaks French, the interpreter will be able to interpret to English for me to understand. In that way, we can communicate effectively. So the domain name server is doing majorly the work of an interpreter, such that you as an individual you understand the domain name. So when you launch your web browser, you input www.facebook.com. So the domain name server picks that up and gets the equivalent IP address. So IP address are a series of numbers, right? So they are majorly, they are actually address, just like you have physical address. For example, in Lagos, you can say, oh, I'm number 1 Broad Street, or I'm at number 3 Kosoko Street, and all of that. So there's an address that is attached to every resource available on the server. So when you make a request, there's an IP address that is attached to that domain name. So the domain name server helps you to get the equivalent IP address and use the IP address to fetch the required information and give this back to your browser. But the beautiful thing about this thing is that all of these things happen within seconds, that most of the times you don't even take notice what is going on. Like, you just launch your browser, you just type www.twitter.com, and before you know it, you have the web page displayed before you. But the principle, what happened behind the scene, is what I just explained to you. So basically, there is someone who is fetching the domain name, which you understand, which is the www.sheyi.com, www.unilag.com, www.facebook.com. There's something picking it up, getting the equivalent IP address, and using that to fetch the resource and giving it back to you, right? Now, so for this page, which is the response that you are now seeing, so there's something that actually makes up that page. Now, what makes up the page is what we want to talk about in this class. So when you see a web page can be made up of, can be made from HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Those are the 3 major things that are actually responsible sometimes for the look and feel and the functionality of a particular web page. Though it's not limited to just JavaScript, right, for functionality. There are other languages that you can use for functionality, right? There are other languages that you can make use of for functionality. But majorly, like I said, for every web page that you see, for every website that you see, the layout, what you can see on that website, is made up of HTML and CSS. HTML simply means hypertext markup language, while CSS simply means cascading style sheets. Now, HTML is not a programming language, right? So, so someone who asks you, oh, which programming language do you know, or which programming language do you understand? I won't say you know HTML. So HTML is not a programming language. We refer to HTML as markup language. So from the name itself, HTML simply means hypertext markup language. So it's a markup language. And the reason why we refer to it as the markup language is because it's a series of text that are markup. And by the markup, they are enclosed inside a less than and greater than sign. That's why we refer to them as, being markup language, right? And like I said, every web page that you see there is made up of HTML and CSS for the look of the website. That's for the layout. So HTML is like, when you compare it to the human anatomy, like the physical body of a human being. So you can say HTML is like the skeleton, right? And I know many of us won't find that interesting, right? When you just have skeleton walking up and down, right? So the same way, so CSS is like the flesh covering up the skeleton. So the flesh beautify the skeleton, the bones, the same way CSS beautify HTML. So HTML is just responsible for the layout of the website, but you can then apply CSS to the HTML to beautify the website. So that's what HTML and CSS are basically, right? Now, for the purpose of this class, I will try to be as practical as possible. How to encourage. I would like to encourage each and every one of us to get the following. For the purpose, though for today, we can still make do with, if you're using Windows, you can still make do with Notepad or Notepad++ if you have any of them installed. But if you don't have Notepad, of course, Notepad come by default with Windows, right? But if you don't have Notepad++ installed, I think I would like to encourage us for subsequent classes to, after this class, you can download Visual Studio Code. I think that's the IDE. IDE simply means Integrated Development Environments. That's the IDE that we'll be using. Integrated Development Environments. IDE simply means editor. So they are your code editors. Just like the same way, if you want to type Word documents, you need Microsoft Word, right? As your editor. The same way, if you want to code any language, actually, Python, C#, JavaScript, Visual Studio Code is a very good IDE that I will recommend. And that's what we'll be using for this class. All right, so if you don't have Visual Studio Code installed on your system for today, you can still make do with Notepad, like I said. Let me share my screen. I will try as much as possible to explain the fundamentals. Then we'll go to the details. All right. So if you can see my screen, this is the IDE Visual Studio Code, right? So with this, you can make use of this as an editor for your HTML, for your CSS, and even JavaScript, as far as web development is concerned. So today, so what we can do is, let me quickly go to my desktop and create a folder on my desktop. So you can create, you can also do the same. So you can do the same. Just create a folder on your desktop. You can name it web. You can just name it web, right? On your desktop. So then you can come to, if you're using Visual Studio Code, you can then come to open here, right? So once you click on open, I go to my desktop. This is the folder web. I believe you can see my screen. This is my folder web. Then I can go ahead and select it. I'm using Mac, right? So you might not have the same interface as I have. So you can go ahead and do this. Okay. All right. So you can see I have my web folder, but my web folder is actually empty because there is nothing there. I just created a folder on my desktop and I call it web, right? So I can go ahead now to add a file to it. I can go ahead and add a file. That is, I'm creating a file inside that folder. So I have this file. So I click on this guy to save file, right? And I give the file a name. So the landing page of every web application is referred to as the index page. So index like this. So you have this index. That's a landing page, the first page of the website. So from that page, you can then navigate to every other page, right? So what you do is, there's an extension, like I said, because this is HTML. Please, let's stop using the annotate key button, right? That's the reason why you're drawing lines on my, don't click on anything, just keep watching, right? I don't know if an admin can help us to disable all of those things so that we don't get distracted. So like you can see, so I have my file name as index, then the extension will be HTML because that's what we are coding, right? That's the language, HT. So it will be index.html, index.html, right? So you press enter. Now, I've created that. So I have my index.html file created inside the web folder on my desktop. Good. So this now, with this, I can then say, I can come here now and do HT. Now, so once I type HTML, now I want to give us the basic component of HTML. And I will explain what all of these things. So don't worry yourself. I'll also give you time. When it's time, I will ask us to meet ourselves so that we can ask questions. So this now, we have HTML, we have HTML5. So I will just select this second one, HTML5, and double click. So by default, it gave me this default component in HTML. Now, if you're using, that's a difference. If you're using Notepad, you will not have all of this. So you have to type all of this major component out by yourself. But because we're using this IDE, this editor, and because it's an intelligent editor, he understands that what we intend to do is to actually write something in HTML. And so because of that, by default, he gave us this. He gave us this by default, right? Let me move all of these things down. Okay, so he gave us this guy by default. So we have the HTML doc type, we have the HTML, we have the head, we have the meta, we have title, we have head, we have body, we have HTML. Now, all of these, don't forget, I told you that we have tests that are markup. Markup means they are enclosed inside the less than and greater than sign. So when if you notice, so you will see that you have the less than sign followed by the greater than sign, less than sign on each of the lines. So you can see less than sign, then after it's greater than sign. So everything you can see in HTML that is enclosed inside that less than and greater than sign is what we refer to as a tag in HTML. So when you hear the word tag, tag simply means text that is enclosed inside the less than and greater than sign. That is a markup. Anything that is markup in HTML is referred to as a tag. Now, when you have a tag, then there are two types of tags. We have what we call the opening tag, just like we have here. So we have this head, that's the opening tag. But this second head, that's the closing tag. Let me see if I can erase this guy. Okay, that's it. All right. Okay, so you can see this head above, the one I highlighted above here, that's the opening tag. The one I highlighted below is a closing tag. And if you notice, you will see that there's a difference between this opening tag and this closing tag. And the major difference has to do with this /. So this / is what differentiates the closing tag from the opening tag. So when you see tags and you see / preceding the text in that tag, you will know that, oh, that's a closing tag. But when you see a tag without any /, that is an opening tag. So you can see this HTML is without /, that's opening tag. This other HTML is with /, that's closing tag. This body tag is without /, that's opening tag. This other body tag is with /, that's closing tag. So those are the two types of tags that we have. Tag TAG. So we have the opening tag and the closing tag. Now, when you have both the opening tag and the closing tag on an HTML page, we refer to it as an element. So when you have a complete tag, elements simply means a complete tag. And a complete simply means opening tag and has to do is what we call the attributes. Now, attributes simply is a modifier. Attributes can modify an element. So for example, now you can see these HTML elements. This is an HTML opening tag, right? This is an HTML opening tag. This is an HTML closing tag. But if you want to check for an attribute, you can just place your cursor after the last alphabet of that text and press your space and apply an attribute that you want to add to it. So that's that. So now you understood what a tag is, what an element is, and what an attribute is. Now let's now come to this component that we have on our page, on this screen. So let me quickly explain this. So when you want to start anything HTML, it must start with HTML. So when you want to write any HTML, so you have to start with the HTML tag itself. Then you specify the language as an attribute to say English, right? Or any other language. Now, then you have the head. You have the opening head tag and closing head tag. In between this opening head and closing head tag, like I said, this thing, you don't need to cram this thing because most editors will give you this by default. So it's not something that you need to cram, right? So this guy, this meta most of the time is used to describe the certain elements of your website. So apart from this one, talking about the content, which is the width, device width, like saying, giving you an idea, okay, this is what we intend to do with this. The name of this meta tag is viewpoints, and telling you, giving you an idea, okay, this is a responsive website, right? You can also use meta to describe the certain keywords, which can help when you're doing SEO, search engine optimization. So for example, now, so you can have another meta tag that will be responsible, where you then list all of the descriptions. You have your content, then you have your descriptions, and you list all of your keywords. So for example, now, if you have a website where people can buy, let's say, hosting packages, for example, so you can add to your meta tag certain keywords like hosting, free hosting, online domain hosting. So those could be your keywords. So you could add all of that, all of those ones in your tags. Then the title. The title is basically talking about what you see as title when you launch a web page. Let me see if I can quickly share another screen to show you what. Yeah, let me quickly do that to show you what this is all about. Okay. Let me share this screen. Okay. All right. Okay, I believe you can see now. So when this screen you're looking at now, sorry, I have so many tabs on this browser. But let me use this to explain what I'm talking about. Okay. So for example, now on my screen, this, if I place my cursor here, for example, this RabbitMQ management that you're seeing, that's basically is a title. This thing that you are seeing, web.skype.com, that is the title. So when you're building a web page and you give a title, you specify a title in your editor. So the title, you will see the title on that web page when you visit that web page. So for example, now the title of this page is AutoMapper and Data Transfer Objects. That's the title of this page now. So if you also want to give, if you're designing a website and you want to give that website a title, so you can just specify the title in the title, be in between the opening title tag and the closing title tag. All right. So let me go back to the previous screen. All right. So that's the title. So we can say for this title, we can say, oh, let's give this guy a title. I will say, let's say first web page, right? That's the title. Now, if you're using this Visual Studio Code, like I said, there's something I would like you to do. I would like you to install an extension. So for example, so you can come here. So you will see this if you're using Visual Studio Code. So if you click on this extension, so you can come up here and click preview, search for preview. All right. So live preview by Microsoft, this guy. So you can install this extension on your Visual Studio Code. I already have it installed, right? But for you might not have, if you're just installing Visual Studio Code, you don't have it installed by default. So you have to search for an extension, preview, and install this live preview. So once you install this live preview, like I have it installed now, so we can then, I can then come here. This is my live preview, right? I can click here, click on this button, you can see. It will split this screen to two. Yeah, that's it. So what I have, whatever code that I'm writing here, automatically will be applied on my right-hand side. So this is what my website will look like. So as I'm writing, as I'm coding the web page here, I'll be seeing the results on this right hand. So this means that you don't necessarily have to, go back, save your work, and go to your page, to now launch it with a browser. So while you are still developing, this live preview will help you to be able to view what you're doing, right? So that's the reason why I said this is important. So let's continue. So we've said this is our first web page. Now, all of the things that will be applying as far as this first web page is concerned has to do with tags and elements in HTML. So basically, that's what we'll be applying. So which means that you then need to do further study to be able to know which tag or which element is responsible for which action. So for example now, so in this body now, so I can come here now. So everything that you want the user to see on your web page must be in between the opening body tag and the closing body tag. Every other thing, like I said, is a title, which will appear up here. So you can see first web page. So if I change anything here now, capital letter F, you can see this also has changed to capital letter F. Trying to move this screen down. Okay, so you can see this has changed to capital letter F to first web page. That's the title. And that's the same way you will see it if you open it to the browser too. So you will see it will give you the title here. Now, like I said, so every other thing that you want, all this white region, whatever you want to see in this white region that you are seeing up here, must then be in between your opening body tag and closing body tag of your HTML. So for example now, so if I come here now and I want to apply an element called, let's say, H1 elements. If you're using Visual Studio Code, right? So you don't need to type all of those elements by yourself. So if you say H, you can see it's already telling me H1, H2. So these are all of the tags that are available in HTML, starting with H. You can see H1, H2, H3, H4, H5, H6, HDR, head, header, H group, HR, and HTML. Like I said, you will get to know what most of these tags mean eventually. But for now, you might not actually bother yourself with a whole lot of them. So for example, now if I need H1, I will just say H and I select one and I press enter. So I have my opening H1 tag and my closing H1 tag. So the two of them together now, there is referred to as an element. So when you have a complete tag, what you have is an element. So here now, I can say code Africa. You can see Code Africa training, right? So it starts H1. Now, like I said, we have H1, H2, H3, H4, the difference between H1, H2, H3, H4, H5, H6 is basically the size, which you might not need actually. So for example, now this is our H1. Let's see what our H6 look like. So I do H, sorry, lowercase. So I do H, and that's my H6. Let me copy the same Code Africa training to this H6, right? So you can see the difference. So the difference is that H1 is quite big, H6 is quite small. So the difference is just in the front, in the size, the font size. So H5 is bigger than H6, H4 is bigger than H5, H3 is bigger than H4, H2 is bigger than H3, H1 is the biggest and is bigger than H2. So that's the difference. So we can take this out now. Now, so we have H1, that's now. So we can have this guy. We can have H2, right? So we can say maybe we can add the main child or something and say maybe anything like giving you the best. All right. So that's it. So that's our H2. So we have Code Africa training and we have this. So this is what our website currently looks like. Now, you then move ahead, so okay, this is fine. So that's my title. So I want to apply on that thing and I'll say, okay, I want to apply maybe a paragraph now. Paragraph P. So you can just say P and you press enter. So just like paragraph in your Microsoft Word. So you can just type your text there, right? So that's, if that's your text. Okay. So that's your text. And you can see you have your paragraph here too. You might say, okay, I also want to add an image, right? Oh, okay, I want to add an image, IMG. Okay. Image, IMG. That's the tag when you want to add image to your web page. Now, you want to add image to your web page. So you choose a tag called IMG. Now, if you notice, this IMG, okay, let me take out this guy first because that's a tag itself. This is a tag. You will notice that unlike every other one that we have before, you can see H1, opening H tag, opening H tag, opening H1 tag, closing H1 tag, opening H2 tag, closing H2 tag. But when you come to this image now, you now see just the opening tag. Somebody would then ask, what happened? Like for every other one, you've been having opening and closing tag. But for this one, you only added opening tag. Now, that's to tell you that there are some exceptions. There are just few of them. There are exceptions to the rule of opening and closing tag in HTML. Example of them is this guy called image, to add image. So this IMG is what you need to add an image. Then you need to apply an attribute. Like I said, to apply an attribute, all you just need to do is just to come to the last test. To come to the last test, of this particular tag and press space, key space on your keyboard. So when you do this, then you then say, you apply an attribute called SRC, which means source. So SRC source is talking about the source of the image. Give me the location of the image so that with the location of the image, I can help you to display the image. So if you don't give me the location, unfortunately, I won't be able to display the image. But if you give me the location, I can help you with the image. So what I can do is that let's go to a page where we can get free image, right? So let me stop this and share another screen where we can fetch free image. So let's go to our browser. All right. And let's come here and let's go to Persus.com. Okay, so we are on Persus.com. So on Persus.com, we can actually get free image, right? You can get free image or whatever image you want. Okay, so okay. Okay, I think I like this image. Okay, let's use this image. Let's download it. So you can just download this one. Okay, so I have the image. Let's go. Let me go to the location and copy this image. So let me copy it and put it. So what I can do is that I can go to my desktop. Inside my folder, inside the folder web, right? I can go inside that folder web and create another folder and call it maybe IMG image. Then I can paste that image inside. For easy, let me change the name so that it can be easy for us to fetch. So let me just say p.jpg. Fine. Okay. So we can also let's go back to, so let me stop sharing this page. We grab the image from Pexus. So let's go back to our web page, right? So we are back on our web page. So because this, so if you see now, the image folder that I just created has been added, and inside that image folder, I have the picture called p.jpg. So all I just need to do is just to come here, specify the folder name, IMG, then the image name. And you can see automatically it has added that image for me. The image we downloaded. So that's our web page. Now, but to make all of these things, you know, this now, like I told you earlier, HTML is basically like the skeleton. And if you see truly what we have done so far, you also will look like, you know, this does not look like a website that you like, right? And that's because this is just HTML. So what you can then do is to apply CSS to this HTML to beautify this code. But before we do that, in this body, so another thing that we can do, there's another tag, there's another element that we can add, which is called a div element. So this div element, so all of the code, all of these things that we've done so far, we can wrap it inside the div. Div is like a section, right? It's like a row. It's like a row. So when you want to introduce a new row, you can add another div, as many div as possible. So div is an element also. It has an opening tag and a closing tag, right? It's just basically used to specify the section of a particular portion of your web page. Now, so this is inside this now. So what we can do is that let's even style this guy up and let's see what the results will look like. Okay. So to apply CSS to your HTML page, there are 3 different ways of applying CSS to HTML. The first way, don't forget I told you that CSS simply means cascading style sheets. And what is used for is basically to style an HTML. Like I said, HTML is like maybe ordinary woman face, right? When you then apply, when you see a woman and maybe you see a professional makeup artist and, you know, the person is able to put up, you know, a very beautiful makeup or makeover for that person. When you see the person, you know, sometimes you might not even be able to recognize the person again, you know, and, you know, probably because it's done by a professional, you know, you can see that beauty, right? So you can also say maybe ordinary HTML is like a woman without makeup. Then when you apply CSS to an HTML, you can then say, oh, this woman, or CSS has been applied, has been used to style, the same way makeup has been used to style that woman up, right? So that's basically what CSS is used for. So there are 3 ways of applying CSS to HTML. The first one is inline style. Inline style means both your HTML and your CSS reside on the same line. Both HTML and CSS reside on the same line. So for example now, so I can come to this H1 now and apply, put my space as if I want to check for an attribute of this H1 and check what I call style. And when I say style, I can then begin to define style for this guy and say maybe color. I can say maybe if I'm using hexadecimal value for my color, for example, I can say color is FFFF, right? FFFF in hexadecimal means white. So I can just click here, you know, to change the color to whatever color I want, right? You can see. So as I change the color, you can see. So the color has been applied here to this guy. So that's style. That's inline style, right? Now we also have CSS can also be applied using what we call internal style. Inline style means both your HTML and CSS reside on the same line, just like we have here. But when you are using internal style means that before the closing head tag here, after the title, you apply what we call, you create another element. You introduce an element called style. So when you introduce this element called style, so if I delete this guy from here, from this internal style, say, okay, we don't want to use internal style. Good. We don't want to use inline style, we want to use internal style. So inside this internal style now, I can come here now and define this guy. Now, when you want to apply CSS to HTML using internal or external style, it has a predefined rule, which is called selector, property, and value. Selector. So this is a rule. Selector, property, and value, right? Now, your selector can be any of the HTML tag. Your selector can be any of your HTML tag. Then you select the property and you give that property a value. So that's the rule for internal and external CSS style. So now, selector property value, don't forget. So now, in this, now, this H1 now becomes my selector. So I'll come here and I'll say H1, right? Then, once I do my H1, I apply curly brace. So the property now, I can say color is the property. The property is color. And the value, if I want to use that same style, using my decimal formula, that's white. But in the recent, my background is white. H1 is also white. That's why you can no longer see that code Africa training. So what we can do is that you can come here, click here, and change the color to maybe the color that we have before. And you can see. So I've applied. Selector is H1, property is color, and the value that I'm giving to that property color is this red color. So that's selector property value. And don't forget, every HTML tag can stand as a selector in your CSS. All right. IK Jeremiah is raising up his hand. Okay. Can you drop your question in the comment section? I'll allow us to speak at the end of the class, right? Once I'm done with this part, I'll allow us to ask questions, but in the meantime, because you're raising up your hand, you can quickly just drop your question in the comment section so that I can provide response to it, right? So I'll wait till you can hear me. But don't worry, if you can't do that now, at the end of it, okay, please, how can one get Visual Studio Code? Okay, I will drop the link for us. How do I download the extension? Okay, to get the extension is very simple, right? So once you install your Visual Studio Code, you just come, you see by default, you will see this guy here, extension. And if it's not here, you can go to this guy hub. I think it should be on the let me see. Yeah, under view. So you can see, when you see your view up here, so you can see this is extension. So once you click on this, once you click on that extension, it's under view. Okay, this video is being recorded. Don't worry, you will have access to it later, so you can rewatch it. If you didn't start from the beginning with us, we'll make the material available. We'll make everything available. Don't worry. So like I said, you can add the extension, that live preview, using this. Once you click on the extension, just search for live preview, and you'll be able to install that extension. And subsequently, you can then use it. Don't worry. Let's quickly finish this. I will attend to all of these questions. Okay, don't worry. Just keep following. I will answer all of your questions. I'll answer all of the questions. Okay, so now you can see that with this now, you have applied style to your HTML. Now, but the interesting thing is that this internal style is not also advisable. The most advisable one has to do with what we call the external style. That's the advisable style type external. That is, your CSS is separated from your, somebody should stop doing this annotation, that your CSS file is separated from your HTML. And the reason for that is because, for example, so let's say you have developed, you are done with this web page, and you have deployed this web page, and you use internal style, or you use inline style. Let's say the customer now comes and say, Oga, oh, sorry, I'm sorry, that color, the color that you have, the color that you use for that Code Africa, for the H1, is not really our brand color. Our brand color is actually tomato red, but the color that you use is the normal red. Can you change the color for us? And let's say you have this Code Africa on, let's say you have 20 pages. What that means is that you have to go to each of the page one after the other to go and edit this thing one after the other, one after the other, one after the other, for this to actually reflect the original color. But if you're using external style, all you just need to do is just to go to a single style sheet file, edit the color there, and the color will reflect on all of the other 20 pages. That is the advantage of using the external style, right? So let's do this. Let's just do this. So let me start. So let me now. So now we've seen how you can apply style, and you've seen how you can add HTML and all of that to your web page. How you can add image and all of that. Now let me close with doing a simple web page, and I will start from the beginning. So let's close this guy up. So let's remove this guy. So we have our body as it is. Then we'll remove our style. Yeah, we can leave this title, right? This title is just, like I said, that's the title of the web page. And as you can see up here, that's the title, first web page. So every other thing, apart from this first web page that you have here, will be given to you by default if you're using Visual Studio Code. So you have the code by default. You have what you have here, so you don't have to cram what you have here. This editor will give it to you by default. Now let's start. The only addition that I want to do here is, so we come to our body. So inside our body, like I said, all of this white region, whatever you want your user to see inside this white region, must be in between your opening body tag and your closing body tag. Do not forget. Do not forget. That is very, very important. All right. So what we want the user to see is, the first thing is we introduce our div elements, right? So the div elements is talking about a particular portion, a particular role of our website. So if we use just this single div, that means everything that the user will see without being between this opening div and this closing div. So let's now go and create another page. Let's add another file, because we want to use the external style now. So we add a new file here. So I'll just click here, new file, and I'll just say, maybe I'll just give it a name, style.css. The first one is index.html, but for CSS, the extension will also be .css. So I have style.html, index.html, style.css. So I'll press enter. Right? So I have my CSS. Now, the first thing is, don't forget I said CSS follow a simple rule, which says selector, property, and value. So let's start. So if I come here and I choose a selector and I say body, for example, body. And inside this body, I say margin. I will explain what margin is. Margin 0. Let's also say padding 0 2, right? And let me say background color. Just for purpose of learning, right? Let me even choose any of this color. Blue. And let's save this guy, Ctrl S. Now you see nothing is actually happening to our preview here because there is nothing that is linking this, our CSS. Don't forget, CSS, this is selector, property margin, value of 0, property padding, value of 0, property background color, value of blue. Fine. Let's come to our, so now, on our HTML, nothing has changed because in the recent, there is nothing that is linking that CSS. What we have done in this CSS is to say, anywhere you see my body or anywhere you see this body, paint that background color of the body blue, but our background color is still white. So which means that nothing has happened. Now, the reason why nothing has happened is because in the recent, there is nothing that is linking our HTML to our CSS. So which means that we need to link our HTML to CSS before that can then happen. So we can then add this guy, link. So the link, where do you want to link it to is the href. That's the reference. What file are you linking it to? I would then say link it to style, the name of that file, .css. So I've linked it, style.css. Yeah, I can add another attributes. Type text, text /CSS. Okay. So with this now, we have established that link. Now, so what we can do then is to come here now and say, let's come to this our def now. And I'll say H1. Threadnet training. Okay, let's go to our stash and do H1. H1. H1 color. Hash FFF. Okay, so we can then change it to here, this. Okay, so we can go back to this guy. Okay, so this guy is style.css. Oh, My bad. Okay, so the reason why it's not responding is because if you notice, with this my cursor now, can you see? I have desktop web image style.css. So my style.css is inside image folder. And that's not what I intend doing. It was supposed to be outside of that image folder. It's supposed to be inside the same directory as my index.html. So my bad. Okay. So yeah. It's supposed to be inside image. It's supposed to be inside web. Okay. Yeah. So let me rename style.css. Yeah, that's why it's not responding. So let me copy it out from here, cut it, and bring it here. Okay, so you can see now. So Control S. So what I have inside this style now, so let me delete this one. Move to trash. Yeah. So you can see now. So what I have inside my style now, because I've used this line of code to link my HTML, my CSS to this HTML, whatever style I apply inside my style will automatically be applied to my web page. Will automatically be applied to my web page. And that's exactly what has happened. So, but in the real sense, I don't want all of this color. In fact, I don't want background color. I just use it as an example, right? So we can comment it out because we don't want it. Comment is used to identify unexecutable portion of your code. So if you have a code and you don't want it to be, you don't want that portion of the code to be of any effect. So you can just comment it out by adding this guy to it. That's in CSS. In HTML is different. You can also do the same in HTML, but it's different. Now let's go ahead. So what I want us to do now is to do something to apply a background in a different way. So I'm using CSS now. So for example now, so let's come to our HTML. And let's say this is our H1 now. I want to explain another concept. Don't worry, I have a material that will explain all of these things. Now, if I have H1, but inside different div, and I don't want H1 in one div to inherit the style that I've defined from another div, I can then group them into class to say, okay, this H1 belongs to this class. This other H1 belongs to this class. So if I do that, and I define a class, and I define a style for that class, because the other H1 did not belong to that class, whatever style that I've defined will not be applied to that H1 because it does not belong to that style, because it does not belong to that class. So that's the concept of class. So for example, now, if I come here now, inside this div, I can say this entire div belongs to a class, right? Called maybe header class. Now, I will now go to my CSS and define what this header class means or what this header class can do. So I can go to my CSS now. If you want to define class, it also follows the same rule for CSS of selection, property, and value. So I will come here, but because it's a class, I'll first of all add a dot, right? And I will say header. Then I will now apply my selector, property, and value. So for example, I can say maybe background image. if I do background image will take URL. That URL will take the source, is like SRC, the source of my image, right? So I will pass it into this guy, which is p.jpg, just like I have a p.jpg. That's the image that I have. So I basically just pass that image into this guy as the source of my image, right? Good. So I can give it an height. I can say height 100 VH. Don't worry, I will explain all of this. I can say maybe background size. Maybe it should cover everything. So it should cover all. Don't worry. Once I finish now and you see the result, I will explain everything. I can also say maybe background position. I can say maybe center. Okay. Yeah, that works. So I can then come here. I can then come here and say, come to my HTML. I can come to my HTML, save this guy. But in fact, I don't even need to give this guy maybe a DA. I might not give it the DA class. I might just come here and define. Okay, let's do this. Let's do this. Okay, let's not use a class. So let's say this guy. Okay. So like I was talking about comment the other time. So let's do this. Let's do this to comment this guy out first. And this. And do this. Yes, let's have this guy. Header. Yeah. Okay. So if this is not a class, okay. Yeah. Okay, so what happens? H1. Okay, so the H1 works. Let's see. H1 works. Okay. This is sorry. Okay. Okay. This is not it. Okay, so this my div header. let's check this style. So this header background image, this. Oh, sorry. Sorry. Yeah, I didn't specify the location. Yeah, that's it. Because this guy is inside a folder, right? This image is inside a folder. So that's why I said the source is very, very important. If your HTML and your CSS and your image are in a single folder, you can just do what I did earlier, right? Which is this, because all of them reside inside the same folder. But if you create a separate folder to manage all of your images, right, then you have to specify that path. You must specify that path. If not, it will not work. So you have to specify the full path, which is the name of the folder followed by the name of the image itself. So you can see. So once that is done, it automatically pick this header and set it as a background. And you can see, So you can then lay text on this background now. You can lay text on this background, and this will form the background of your websites. Then you can now put text on top of this thing to just do a simple website, right? So you can go ahead to say, let me expand this back. Okay. We'll still open it with a browser once we're done. So what we've done so far, let me stop sharing and share with a let me open with a browser so that we can also see what it looks like so far. So I can open this guy up. Okay, good. All right, so let me share it now so that we'll see what it looks like on the browser. Okay, so let me open this up and share this guy. All right, so this is what it looks like on the browser. So you can see. So it fill up the space, right? So the next thing we can do is that we can put our link, all our nav bars on this. Nav bars are maybe when you navigate from a portion of your web page to another portion of the web page, let's say from your home page to your services page, to your contact us page, to your about us page. So you can just have all of that listed here, somewhere here, and just do your footer basically. Because every other thing is just dependent on these concepts. So if you know how to add image to your web page, you know how to add text to your to your web page, every other thing is dependent on those two concepts. The rest will just be okay. I then want to style it this way. What do I need to do? Which element do I need? Which style do I need to get this result, right? But every other thing is dependent on how to add either image or text, because that's basically what makes up a web page. Documents, videos, images, tests, so on and so forth, right? So let's quickly just add that bar and we can stop there for tonight. Then I can take questions. So let's go back to stop sharing this. I can share my Visual Studio still. So, all right. So it's almost the same results with this. The only difference is just that one screen is wider. Okay, so this guy can still be, what's going on? Div. All right, so we can still make it so our div, right? Let me comment this guy. right? Yeah. All right, let's add what's it called now? Bars. Okay, so inside the same div, so we can have, so to add our numbers, right? We can do what we call we can add what we call unordered lists. Unordered list. Unordered list can help you to, unordered list will help you to list out your item in an unordered manner. So for example, now when you want to list items, we have ordered list, we have unordered list. Ordered list is when you want to list out, for example, now, let's say you're working on a food website and you want to list classes of food, right? And you want to list out maybe 1 fat, 2 carbohydrates, 3 protein, and all of that. So you can use what we call the list, or unordered list, or ordered list. So for example, now I can say whole health. So I can say whole health, ordered list. Then inside my list, I can then say headline, which is the list. So I can say fat, and I can say another headline. Where is it showing now? Don't worry, we'll fix this guy. So it's saying, let's say protein. Protein. All right. Okay. So this will list out like 1, 2, 3, or you can also specify the type of how you want it listed. I think type, yeah. Yeah. You can say type is 1. So if you choose this one now, this one will do 1, 2, 3 for you. If you choose the other one, it will do ABC. If you say hey, choose this here, it will do ABC for you. If you do this other one, it will do normal lowercase a, b, c, and all of that for you. And if you do this one, no uppercase Roman numeral, and lowercase Roman numeral, high v, and all of that. So that's what this list would do for you. But we also have the unordered list. The unordered list basically is responsible for how this is listed. That is not without any, not in any particular order, either in alphabet ABC or in figure 1, 2, 3, or no Roman numeral 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's not in any particular order. That's what that means. Okay. So let's get that done by doing that. Okay. So let's do unordered list. Don't worry, I'll bring it to the top. I'll bring all of that to the top. So we can also say this guy, this header, we can say unordered list. UL. Unordered list UL. So LI. Home. I don't know if you can see it. It's somewhere actually. Yeah, that's it. Home. Okay. Don't worry. Home. About us. Let's just say services. And the last one, maybe contact us. Contact us. Okay. So that's the list. So we can actually style this guy by simply saying, okay, so the first thing we want to do is these lists, right? They are not always in this particular order. Like, they are not vertically arranged. They are always horizontally arranged. So what we can do is that we can style this li by selecting the kind of style that we want for it to say, okay, inline. You know, the other time I was talking about inline style of CSS, I said inline means, you know, everything fall on the same line. Both CSS and HTML fall on the same line. That's the inline style. That's the style you want to use, right? But if you don't want to go that route, so you can then say, for this now, so we can divide a class for that and call it maybe menu or something. So we have a class called menu, and that class menu, we want to define, we want to say, okay, float it to the right, float right, that is, move all of this thing to the right. Then we can say, we can give it a margin top. I will explain what a margin means. So margin, if you're taking photograph before, right? Printed photographs. So there's a particular region that they will call, before the image itself, like a white region, they'll say, oh, this is the margin. Now, margin means area before the image, right? So for example, now if you look at this screen, see this white image above where my cursor is, that's like the margin, right? So you can define it as a margin and say, okay, before maybe an image starts or before a test starts, I want to apply a margin. So whatever you specify will actually be the value that will be given to that margin. So for example, now you can say, okay, for this now, you are floating all of these elements to the right. But apart from floating it to the right, you also want to give it a margin from the top. You also want to apply before it starts. So give it a margin of, let's say, margin top, let's say, margin top of, let's say, 10 pixel. I will explain the difference between pixel and percentage for us too. So once that is done, we can then say, okay, well, I don't know, maybe 10% or 20 or 30, let's say 30 pixel. So that it should be really obvious. Then maybe you can say, let's do color, and let's do white, FFFF. Good. Now, that's the first style. Then the second style is the li itself. So we can say dot menu. Yeah, the li inside the dot menu would be of this. Yeah, which is the list, would be the display. And display type will be inline. Yeah, maybe inline block. Yeah, we'll explain this. So we'll say save. So we can then come to so we can save this guy and go to our CSS and give this guy class menu. That's it. So you can see. So the inline has applied, the color, everything has applied. So we can then pad it a bit. So save this guy, go back to our style. And let's say for this guy, maybe adding right, of what does 30 pixel looks like. Okay, yeah, 30 pixel works. So the only thing, so once that is done, we can then come here and make it a link truly. Currently it's not linked to anything, but we can link it somewhere, right? By saying applying an anchor tag, which is, we can then say this guy will go into A, which is A. Yeah. So the link will go inside here, anchor tag. Okay. So we can then link this somewhere, and so that when you click on that home, it will then take you to, let's say it should stay on index.html. Yeah. Home should stay on index. So this now has become a link. So you can see, unlike this one is a link. So when I click on this one, it will reload this page. Unlike this one. So we can also link the rest. And we can then change, we can also style this color to then say maybe on click, active after we have clicked, hover, when our mouse comes upon the link, the color should change and all of that. We will handle all of that in the next class. But this class basically is just to show us how we can actually overlay text on our image by setting the image as a background. So I think this is where I will stop tonight. Let me now save this guy and share, and let me share what it looks like on a browser, so that we can then close there, right? All right, so let me refresh. So this is the result on the browser. So in subsequent classes, we can load this up with tests. We can also apply some other things by fading out this background image, adding text to it, adding paragraph to it, adding our footer to make it a complete website. We can add article, we can divide the text into different article and sub-article in subsequent classes. But for this class, we can actually stop here tonight. So let me explain some of the things that I've done before I then allow us to ask our questions. Okay, so let me quickly share this back. All right. So what I've done is that basically I've just added these HTML elements. And this URL, like I said, means unordered lists. That is when you want to list out items like this, but not in any particular order. The other one is OL, when you want to list out in a particular order to say maybe ABC 1, 2, 3 and all of that. So when you just use this to list out all of these things. But the only thing difference is that we then apply style. The class is class menu. And inside my class menu, I said float to the right means everything by default starts from the left-hand side on web page. So anything you type out, you see, we always start from the left-hand side. But when you now say float it to the right, you can say float to the right, you can say float to the left. If an item is on the right, you can float it to the left. If it's on the left, you can float it to the right. So all of these items by default are listed on the left-hand side. So I use this value right property of float to move it to the right. So I float it to the right. Then I said, okay, from the top, don't start immediately from the top. If I cancel this guy now, if I comment this margin, you will see that this text will move up. So let's completely remove it. Let me not even comment. Let me just cut it out. Can you see? It has gone up. But if I come down and I paste it now, you can see it has applied a margin of 30%, dropping it down. If I increase this guy from 30 to, let's say 100. 1,000 is too much. Can you see 100? So which means that is the difference between this place and where you want it to be that you will specify there. So that's why I specified 30, right? So 30 pixel is okay. So I want it to just be here. Then this other one is an attribute, is property, and I give it a value of white color. So let the color be white. This first one is blue because that's the color of a link by default, but we can also change all of those ones. The other one has to do with the display. The display is basically saying, which style of display do you want? Do you want inline? Inline means instead of arranging, if I remove this guy now, this inline, let's copy it out. You can see what happened. It listed them out in an ordered list manner. Okay, these are on ordered list, and I list them out vertically like that. But when you say, oh, sorry, I don't want it listed vertically, I want it inline, that is on the same line. So when you do that, that's when you see that you can have everything listed out in that manner. So you can see display inline, either inline or inline block. So inline or inline block will give you the same results, right? So your display is inline. So you have everything listed out inline. And you pad it. Padding means basically you are padding it. You can pad right, you can pad left, you can pad top, you can pad bottom. It all depends. Padding is like, you bought a shoe. Unfortunately, it's not your size. So you added some things like foam in the shoe before you put your leg in the shoe so that the shoe can then fit you, right? So padding is like before the test, you want to add some space. Or in between tests, you want to add some space. So you can see if I remove this padding right, you will see that they will come closely together, all of the list. Can you see? Home, about us, just put a space tab in between them. But you can then use that padding to apply space to it. So if you want, you can increase it. If you increase it to 50, the space will also increase. You can see the space has increased from 30 to 50. So that's basically, so at every point you want to apply, you are thinking of, oh, I want to apply a space, I want to do this. So I want to pad, I want to apply margin. You know what margin is, you know what padding is, you know what inline display is. Then is now the application that is very, very important now. So how to apply what and when to apply it is now the concept that you now need to study and read about furthermore henceforth. Okay, so this is where we'll stop tonight. Let's take questions. If you have dropped your question in the chat room, let's check it out and take it one after the other. Being new to the system, seriously, I'm not following. Yeah, like I said earlier, before at the beginning of the class, I explained the first time concept, and I said, you are coming across something for the first time, don't get scared, don't get agitated, right? Because there will always be first time to everything in life. There was the first time you took the first step, and people were watching you, the way you were staggering, and they were watching you like, this is not how to walk. People who are 10 years old, 20 years old will be looking at you and be saying, is this how to walk? But after you took that first step, subsequently you begin to take those steps, And, as you grow older, you perfect those steps. And today you can walk without anybody, supervising you, right? So that's the same thing. That's the same concept, concept I want you to apply here. That, okay, I'm just coming across this thing for the first time. But if I give myself time and I study and I read and I have material, I can actually improve and get better at it. That's the way I want you to look at it. Okay. Yeah. Live preview. Yeah, that's the extension. That's the name of the extension. Live preview. Okay, let me quickly get the link to to download Visual Studio Code. I know some people are already asking for that. Visual Studio Code. Download Visual Studio Code. Yeah, okay. So I'm dropping the link now for us to be able to download. Yeah. So this is a link. So just download the one that is suitable and applicable to you, right? Depending on the machine you're using. If you're not using excuse me. Oh, what happened? Don't seem to be able to find. Okay, where is this chat room? Admin, please, can you help me unmute people who are raising up their hands so that they can ask questions? As for this, I'm dropping this in the chat room now. Chats. Yeah, one after the other, please. Okay, so I've dropped to everyone. Yeah, I've dropped the link to download Visual Studio Code. So please, one by one, just unmute one person at a time so that we can take the question on.
Good afternoon. Good evening, sir.
Yeah, good evening.
Sir, I am asking, maybe there is a WhatsApp group that you can add us to so that you drop some materials that we'll be able to read later.
Yeah, I think, the admin will communicate with you. They will get your mobile number. They will create a WhatsApp group, add all of you to that WhatsApp group. Then I will send the material and the link to this recorded video to that WhatsApp so that you can always have time to go over it all over again.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. That's my question.
All right. Okay. Any other question? You can meet yourself, the next person.
Yeah,
please,
good evening.
You are working with. Like I just dropped the link, so you can check the chats. I just dropped the link to download the Visual Studio Code and install. Okay, good evening. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, if you can check the video, I'm displaying my screen, though I'm using my phone to follow you, but I have a Mac system in front of me, and I've already downloaded the Visual Studio Code. So I'm displaying my screen now. So I lost at the very beginning, but in the middle, while you proceeded, I understand everything you are teaching. But the beginning, which is the foundation, is where I got lost. So like now I have the Visual Code. I'm on the web like this now as I'm talking to you. If you check my screen, you will see that I'm displaying my laptop screen for you to see.
Yeah,
so I don't know
the
next thing to do.
Okay.
So I can see
your laptop screen actually.
I title it Code Africa.
Yeah, I can see, but the screen is actually small. But yeah, so Code Africa, yeah. So inside, so that folder that you created that you call Code Africa now, you will see a plus sign. There is a first icon. Yeah, the first one, yeah. Yeah, that's how to add file. So if you you can type index.html there now. So if you type everything lowercase, index.html. So yeah, press enter. Once you are done .html, then press enter. It will open that up for you. Exactly. So you have so type HTML now. Yeah. So select the second one with 5. Just select the second one.
Okay.
So it has loaded. So save it now.
Okay.
If you save it and you have that live preview extension now, you can now begin to type and you now begin to see what you have on the right hand side.
Okay.
All right.
How do I save this?
Just do Control S.
Okay.
If you're using Mac, it's Command.
I'm using
S.
Mac. Command S.
Yeah, Command.
Okay. Yeah.
If you're using Windows, Control S.
Thank you, sir.
Exactly. All right. So, but you still have access to the material, so you can follow up from there. But basically, that's how to set that up.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Next person. Yeah, you're welcome.
Sir.
Yeah, good evening.
I want to ask about the internal and external CSS. I don't know which is which.
Okay, so internal style is that there are three types. Inline is every HTML and CSS will be on the same line. Internal simply means that the same thing that you have in your. Let me quickly go back there. I hope you can see my screen. So internal style is saying the same CSS that you have here. You can move it away from here, from an external file. Please, if you are not asking a question, please mute yourself so that we can ourselves, please, so that there won't be distraction. So you can see this internal style now. I can just decide to move it away from here, right? And come and drop it inside. Wait. Am I showing you? Okay, let me share this again. So let me share this again. Okay, so here's it. So internal style is saying this is my CSS. I'll still achieve the same result. So let me come to my CSS now and move away every of these things that I have here. So let me copy this guy from here. In fact, let me cut it. I cut it, Control. I cut it. So if I come to my HTML now, so you can see my HTML now, no CSS is applying again because I've already removed the external style of CSS. So I cannot come inside here. So if I come here now and I remove this link, this is the link that I use to link that external to this internal. I can come here now and say style. That's before the closing head tag. If I come here and I say style, in between this opening style tag and closing style tag now, I can drop that code, that CSS Control V. That's it. So internal style is that both your HTML and your CSS are in the same file, not on the same line. You can see now. See, this is my CSS. From here that I have style to up here where the style begins. That's my CSS. But you can also see that this CSS is also inside this my HTML. So when you have your CSS inside your HTML file, that is internal. When you have CSS on the same line with your HTML, that is internal. When you have your CSS outside of your HTML, that is external. All right. Any other question? Yeah, go ahead.
Hello, good evening, sir.
Yeah, good evening.
Please, what is the difference between Python and this visual?
Okay, Python. Python is a programming language. Python is a programming language, right? And it's a very dynamic programming language and one of the best used programming language in this current time, right? And that's what is used for data science, machine learning, artificial intelligence, and all of that. That's what Python is used for, right? It's a programming language.
Okay. So we can't run this on Python.
Can't do it.
Hello, sir. I will do this thing on Python as well.
No, yeah, you can actually, like I said, there is a framework in Python that also supports web development, right? So you can, but like I said, Python is a separate programming language which you also need to learn if you want to be coding Python. Maybe you are interested in data science, you are interested in artificial intelligence, you are interested in machine learning and all of that. You can learn Python, right?
Okay.
It's because it's a programming language. Okay. Or if you now want to use Python for web development, which is not data science, machine learning and all of that, there's a framework in Python that is meant for web development that you can use to develop website or web application.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
All right. Any other question? Any other question?
Good evening.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Yeah. So when I was so busy, so I of this point. You are talking about the margin the other time.
You guys,
The margin, is it for you to sell the image?
I'm going to put my drink. Who's in the fridge?
Can you mute yourself if you're not asking questions so that we can
hello, sir. I want to ask, why do the bodies all seem to be set the margin and the padding to 0 on the
Okay, margin. Okay, so like I said, if for example now, if you want to, for example, let's say you don't want, there are some web page that you will see that the web page itself does not start from, for example, from here. Like you will see, they will leave some space and the website can start maybe from somewhere around there, if you're following my cursor. Now, what they have done is that they have applied a margin left. So at every point in time, for example, I used if you have seen a printed image before, if you've printed your picture before, there are some pictures that you will see, right? Before the image itself starts, there's a white region. That's what we call margin. So they have applied a margin to that image before the original image, which is your image starts, right? That is margin. The same thing can be done on a web page. You say, okay, before my content begins on my web page, apply a margin of so and so in pixel. Like the other one is pixel, either in pixel or percentage. Pixel is a measure to say maybe like meter, maybe 10 meter, 20 meter. That's the same way you measure pixel. But percentage is like you say, okay, 20%. If you say 50% now, that's like half. So for example, now if we go back to this time and we say, okay, margin of, instead of margin of 0, margin, the way we apply margin is top left, bottom right. So if we say, for example, now we say body and we can say maybe, let's say 50 pixel margin, and let's say 50%, 50 pixel rather. I would say 50 pixel. I just want to show us something so that we'll just see what this will look like. So let's say Ctrl S to save it. Do you notice anything? Do you notice any difference? I don't know if you can see my screen. You will notice, like I explained, like that picture now. You know, it's looking like that picture where you have margin. So you have my white margin surrounding the picture. So there's a picture But you can see that you now have margin around that picture. And that's because I said you should apply margin of 50 or in those 4 places. It simply means what I've done here is to say 50, like I said, 50 top, left, bottom, right. That's what it means. 50 pixel top, 50 pixel left, 50 pixel bottom, and 50 pixel right. So that's why you see 50 pixel all around. Okay. But you don't want, I can say, for example, now let's remove the left hole and leave the top hole. So let's go to the sky and say, okay, take out the 50% of the left and replace it with 0. So let's go back. So that's right. It's top right, bottom left, top right, bottom left. So you can see now the right hand side one has gone. So let's go back and so if top right, bottom left. So let's take out the left hand side one too. Let's go back. You can see now. I took out the left hand side, I took out the right hand side. So I have top and bottom. So that's you can see top, right, bottom, left. That's how margin works. So if you don't need margin at all, so just set it as 0. But if you want 50% margin top, you can have 50 million top, right, bottom, left. Top is 50, right is 0, bottom is 50, left is 0. So that's the way it works. So you can see I have only the marginal top. So if I don't want it on the top too, so I can just take it out and say, oh, I'm sorry, I don't need it at the top too, and I don't need it at the bottom too. So if I take it out like that, if I go back, all of the margin gone. So I just have mine. So if you want, if your own website, you just say, oh, I think I don't want it to start from the very beginning. I want to apply margin of maybe 50 or 100 pixels. You can go ahead and apply it. So that's what margin is. But in our own case here, what we have done is to say, okay, margin should be 0. Margin is outside. Padding is inside. Right? So get that concept. Margin is outside. That's before the thing starts. Padding is inside the thing now. Before you now had a test, you now want to apply padding. That's when padding. It works the same way like margin. It also works with top right, bottom left. Top right, bottom left. All right. Our time is fast spent. Any other question? But like I said, don't be discouraged. You're just coming across this thing for the first time. Remember the first time concept. If you don't remember any other thing, don't worry yourself. As time goes by, you get to understand better. All right, let me take 2 more questions before we call it a day.
Hello, good evening, sir.
Try to talk. Yeah, good evening. Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. Actually, I started from the beginning. So I was getting.
Please. I can hear you. Go on.
I said, so I was getting it at a time, but when you were going deeper, like I can't really get it again. Where I can say I got it to an extent of when you said when you were trying to tell us the similarity between the CSS and the which other one did you mention? That's where I got it. From there, I can't really get it. Even the image that you were trying to, explain to us like a house. I'm not getting it from there.
Okay, don't worry. This, like I said, the coordinator of this training will get across to all of us. They will get our WhatsApp number. They will add us to a WhatsApp group. We will drop the link. We are recording this class, right? We'll drop the link to this class so that you can go ahead and rewatch it. Then we also drop some materials that will help you, right? You can read on your, actually simple material. You can just go through them and just repeat, just copy the code you have on the material, paste it with your editor, save it, and use the live preview to view it. And you'll be seeing the difference as you are changing, as you are approaching it, so that you can understand and learn better. So we make all of those. Coordinator will persuade every one of us.
All right. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you for your time.
All right. So thank you everyone for being part of today's class. Please, before the next class, get your Visual Studio code ready, get it installed, download the extension preview so that we can follow up. I can ask one or two of us to show us one or two things in the next class, right? So please, let's get it ready. Okay, I think someone just dropped the link to the WhatsApp chat. I'm not sure if that is from the official, but the coordinator will get across to all of us. Thank you very much for being part of this class. See you next time.